great-great-grandkids who heard stories of great-great-great-great-great-great-granddad Joshua and all his people. We're not talking about that far removed. How far are we talking about? One generation. We're talking about maybe kids, you know what I mean? We're talking about just one simple generation who failed to understand what dad did or what dad's God did or granddad's God did. The works that had happened, it's not like it's been millennium or anything. This has just been a short amount of time, and yet this generation failed to understand and know who God was and the works that He's of decline. And we can see this throughout any type of society or company or any kind of groups. Number one, we see the first level of decline is apathy. Everybody knows what apathy is. It is an indifference of belief. So I'm gonna make it better. I'm gonna do it a better way. So it's an indifference to the beliefs of their former regime. The next one is apostasy. What does apostasy mean? It means an abandonment of belief more. And then finally, it leads to anarchy. And that is the rebellion, decline, because that's what granddad did, or that's what dad did, or that was the old laws. Man, we have a new way of thinking, we're advanced in thinking, you know? We have a modern way of thinking. And so we abandon those things. Then all of a sudden we rebel against them. Judges 20 days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. What does that mean? You believe what you believe. What happened was either the older generation failed to tell them or the younger generation failed to listen. We see some of that happen in today's society, right? I'm telling you, this book is applicable for us today. The book of Judges this is the beginning of the end. You know, we actually studied Nehemiah a few lessons back before that. And what's cool is when you get a chance of Jesus and you don't necessarily connect it to, and you realize it's been, generations and generations and generations of people before you get to that. But the captivity of the children of Israel, which led them into exile in Babylonia, generations, 4 stages. The first one starts out kind of strong. The first one is fighting the enemy. Judges chapter Canaanites to fight against them. And the Lord said, Judah shall go. Indeed, that we may went with them. Then Judah went up, and the Lord delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites to their hand, and they killed 10,000 men at Bezek. And they found Adoni-Bezek in Bezek him. And listen to this. They caught him and cut off his thumbs. 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off used to gather scraps under my table. Like that's what he did to other people. How many know you live by the lack of big toes, and you die by the lack of big toes, right? And these are scraps, and so God has repaid me. Then they brought him to Jerusalem, and there he died. Now they went down to fight against the Canaanites who dwelt in the mountains in the south and the lowlands. Then Judah went against the Canaanites who dwelt in Hebron. Now Caleb said, whoever kills Kirjath-Sepher and takes it, to him I will give my daughter as wife. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, and she dismounted from her donkey, and Caleb said to her, what do you wish? So she said to him, give me a blessing, since you have given me the land of the south. Give me also the springs of water. And Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. Now the children of Kenite, which attacked the Canaanites who inhabited Zepah, and utterly destroyed it. So the name of the city was called Hormah. Also the mountaineers. But they could not drive out the inhabitants of the lowland because they had chariots of iron. And they gave Hebron with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. That's a little foreshadowing, if you would. The book begins with a series of victories and then a few defeats. After Joshua's retirement, the boundary lines, they still had to go in and all the major wars and all the big fights had done, the Jerichos and the settled, and the Canaanites didn't push back as much anymore. They didn't raise up and fight. And so the Israelites, they got a little lazy. They just said, well, if I don't have to fight us, we'll kind of live in the land together. They didn't fight much anymore, nor did they try to move them. They didn't try to build, was theirs. But they failed to possess it. And I love this. Listen to this. Let me read it again. So the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in prophecy? Or do you think he just meant to this day when he penned that? Or do you think he was saying that they dwell with if God's people right then and there had done what they were supposed to do? Imagine what the landscape or the temperature of our world would be if they had obeyed just that. I want you to get it on a global scale. Because honestly, the world has drawn up sides. And it's not just about the Benjaminites or the Israelites or over. People have drawn up sides. They believed in God's promise. They obeyed the Lord, and God gave Judah and Simeon victory after victory after victory. You see, when Joshua was leader, all the tribes worked. Not Benjamin, but Simeon and Jacob. Their dad was Jacob, and their mom was Rachel. They were half. It was the beginning of their decline of banding together. When Joshua was with them, God said everybody has to go out each other. Little bitty startups, and I honestly believe God loves half brother over here, and I have a half brother over there. I have a brother that I like to do things with over here. I have the danger of thinking this is my only army. This is my only people that I fight with. When the truth is that there's a church probably meeting. Well, I know there's a church that meets 4 miles north of us. My brother-in-law, a different place, but we are part of a bigger thing, the church universal. And maybe I have some relation. I'm connected. We're all in this battle together, and we have to see it with that type of lens where it's not just us doing our battle right over here at this part of the church. We are part of the church universal, and so when God's people want to come together, can you imagine people that you work with? Maybe go to a different church, but imagine what you could do if you banded together in your workplace. But man, we can still fight for the kingdom of God together. What I'm saying is we're not out here fighting by ourselves in this church all by ourselves. That's just what I'm saying. And I think we saw Caleb's nephew marrying Caleb's daughter, and they took another land. Othniel eventually we were going to learn later, became one of Israel's first judges. God also went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them. So the house of Joseph went to spy out Bethel. The name of the city was formerly Luz. And when the spies saw the man coming out of the city, they said to him, please show us the entrance to the city, and we will show you mercy. So he showed them the entrance, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword, and they let the man with all his family go. And the man went to the land of the Hittites, built a city, and called its name Luz, which is the name to this day. It takes in second gear. Verse 27, however, Manasseh did not drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shean and its villages, and Tanakh and its villages, or the inhabitants of Dor, determined to dwell in that land. Sin is determined to dwell in your land. It's determined. You may try to drive it out, but it is determined. The only way it's going to be driven out completely is if you are more determined than it is. And it came to pass, nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites who dwelt in Gezer. So the Canaanites dwelt in Gezer among them. Nor did Zebulun drive out the inhabitants of Kitron.